This man has never knocked nobody out cold. He's a bully. He's slow. He has no skill, no footwork. He's awkward. And I have been giving him a name. Because he fights. When he's fighting, if you ever watch him in the ring, he drags like that after his opponent. and how's the mummy gonna catch me?
And all I had to do was to go out and beat a man who had no skill, no class. Seriously, the man had no skill. I don't know why the world is so foolish to believe in him and think that I wasn't going to win.
Well, when you say you're ready to go to war right now...
I see that bear on the street, I beat him before the fight.
You'd actually take him on before the fight?
Beat him like I'm his daddy.
Basketball players out there, football players, they want to beat so bad, they want to get everybody. I'll go to Mars, I don't care.
For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, let's get ready to rumble!
Hello, everyone. Michael Jordan fans are the best. And today, I and T Perfect will be debating who's better, Magic Johnson or Larry Bird. And before we get into all of that, T Perfect, welcome. Do you have any opening statements before we get into this debate or anything you want to say otherwise?
So we're just debating who's better or greater? Is it both? I'm down for whatever.
Oh, yeah. I figured it was who's better. That's what
Who
we're
better?
talking about.
Yeah. Totally, man. I'm definitely for that.
Yeah.
And I think it's Larry Bird. And that's I think, the much easier argument to make.
Yep, I'm actually wearing a Larry Bird shirt, but I think it's Magic Johnson, and I think it's a pretty close argument. I think it's a pretty contentious debate. A lot of people have their opinions on it, so yeah, I figure. And then we didn't discuss this, but I figure I go first. Is that because
absolutely.
you went first last time, so I figure it's only fair.
Sure.
Now, I guess the quick thing with Magic Johnson for me is I think that Magic Johnson really just had maybe not as a potent career in respect to his individual dominance at a certain time. However, I think that the whole versatility and variety and consistency over his career makes him better. And I think that's going to put me over the edge to win.
Okay. On the flip side, I think that kind of what you said there, but I would reverse that and say Larry Bird was not only more consistent, but consistent in more important ways. Like I think he led his team from the drop, especially in scoring. Well, Magic didn't really have that responsibility, and I think that all the things that Larry Bird did, especially in terms of team impact, is going to put me over the edge.
All righty. So without further ado, I say we get this thing started. And I'm going to put myself on the timer.
3, 2, 1.
First off, I want to thank you for another debate, Travis. And I mentioned it before. This is something that a lot of people will argue of who's better, Bird or Magic. And I think that Magic Johnson is better with the meaning of to be more excellent or an effective type of quality. and that's represented by Magic Johnson in basketball, by his impact, his dominance over the rest of the league individually compared to Bird, his dominance over Bird, and his individual team success. This, because they played a majority of their careers against each other, makes this comparison more realistic to make. Magic Johnson's impact is defined by his role, his responsibilities, and his advanced analytics. Although different than Bird's, enabled his team and himself to be more successful against his opponents. He was the team's point guard for a majority of his career, being responsible for initiating the offense and generally making decisions for the group. Bird, also a great passer, did not carry that role as much as Magic did. In addition, before getting into team impact within the box score and advanced analytics, Magic Johnson was faster up and down the court than Bird and was known for his speed on the fast break and often being the first back on defense for his team. Bird did not have as strong as a reputation regarding that. For his on-the-court individual impact versus Bird's, Magic had a higher regular season VORP of 80 to 77.2, higher box plus minus was 7.5 to 6.9, higher win shares, and significantly higher win shares per 48 with 0.225 to 203. And he also had a higher PER of 24.1 to 23.5. For the playoffs, it's similar. Magic had a higher VORP of 18.3 to 15.4, higher BPM of 7.6 to 6.9, higher win shares of 32.6 to 24.8, and higher win shares per 48 with 208 to 173. And at a higher true shooting percentage with 595 to 551 and a higher PER of 23 to 21.4. All of this with a 3% less usage rate than Bird, showcasing his ability to impact the game, not just by being part of the offensive play, but by doing things away from the ball. Magic also played multiple roles throughout his career, showing his versatility above Bird, most famously as a rookie, jumping center when Kareem was out of the game in the 1980 finals. And then as his career moved on, he became more of a half-court player, and then he also had a respectful three-point set shot. And again, Bird never predominantly played point guard. This showcases his versatility.
All right, some great points there. And I'll start off with the advanced analytics there. We all know that a lot of those analytics are heavily team skewed, and that Magic did have a lot of success with the Lakers. And again, that was a historically great team from top to bottom, basically all through that entire decade, right from the time that he got there, like my opponent mentioned, and where he won a Finals MVP, where he was basically the third leading scoring option during that entire playoff run. And he had MVP Kareem, who should have rightfully won that, dropping 33 points and 15 rebounds, 4 blocks, but he was injured tragically during that fight. But let's start off with the actual stats there that we're talking about, the ones that actually matter. And we know that, what does it mean to be great? And we're just comparing these guys straight up, heads up. I think that's an easier debate. Obviously, we already know that Bird has him in three-point percentage, free throw percentage, points, rebounds, and blocks, the majority of the stats there. We know that he won 3 straight MVPs. All right, that's a feat that only he, Wilt Chamberlain, and Bill Russell have ever accomplished. So he's a rarefied air there too. Now, the devil's in the details with these guys, because they came in, like Dart said, at the beginning of their careers, beginning of the season, they single-handedly together saved the NBA from its doldrums that it was in, and basically responsible for what we have now. But Larry Bird came into the league expected to be the guy from the get-go, not a facilitator, not a third option, the guy. And he was that. He immediately led the Celtics in points, rebounds, and steals as a rookie, all while leading the Celtics to 61 wins. Now, that was a 32 win total increase from the previous season. Easily the greatest single season turnaround in league history. Okay. And what's more impressive is that this was really just with the addition of Larry Bird. The same roster, you just added transcendent Larry Bird, and you see that kind of impact. Magic Johnson was never close to being responsible for that type of team impact, especially his first year, where they only improved by about 13 wins. And that was before the addition of Robert Parrish and Kevin McHale, who wouldn't come until the following season. And then, needless to say, Bird won Rookie of the Year over Magic Johnson. and also finished top 5 in MVP voting that year. Okay. Magic Johnson came onto a Lakers team already loaded with talent and primed to make a run. They had MVP Kareem still in the prime of his career, Jamal Wilkes, Norm Nixon, Michael Cooper, future DPOY. They had all these players who were just primed and ready to go. Magic Johnson definitely played a part in their success, but he was really just a complimentary piece the first few years. In fact, during the Lakers' first 4 finals appearances with Magic, he was on average the 4th scoring option.
See, you talk about the scoring options. Magic Johnson was a point guard. His job was to go and facilitate the offense and pass it to guys. He initiated the fast break with Scott, Worthy, and then also if he got in the half-court set, he would pass it off to Kareem. But his job was not to be a scorer. And you had mentioned about Bird having to be the guy. So he was a scorer in that respect, but Magic Johnson also became the guy, and it was evident in that finals MVP award where he ended up playing or jumping center, getting 45 points as a rookie. So he may not have won Rookie of the Year against Bird. However, he absolutely had the impact. And to say that he wasn't a fundamental piece of that team, I don't understand how you come to that conclusion. And then you also talk about, you said in the beginning for that first season, he didn't have McHale and Parrish on his team, but he did after that first year. Also had Bill Walton, Danny Ainge, Dennis Johnson, all Hall of Famers in hindsight as they came to that. So it's not that he didn't have a great team. He had an absolutely fantastic team. And so did Magic, to your point. That single season turnaround, it didn't lead to a championship. Magic Johnson also, when he joined that team, they increased their winning from the previous season, 13 wins from 47 to 60 games, which is not as big as what Bird did. However, it's significant, and it does show his individual impact. And you talk about the stats with the scoring. He played point guard again versus forward, so they're just going to naturally be different. We don't know how it would have been if they played the same. But I wanted to say also is that Magic Johnson, as soon as he's gotten to the league, was recognized in a significant way, and he's the only rookie to do so to date, which I had mentioned was the Finals MVP. So I think that's more impressive if you look at the thing. When you look at all time, you have, Rookie of the Year is awarded all the time. Finals MVP is awarded during the championship, and he was the only rookie to do it. Additionally, comparing Magic to the rest of the league over his career, with Bird to everyone else in the league, Magic won 6 statistical titles, including 2 steals titles and 4 assist titles. And if you want to include it also, he won a free throw percentage title as well. So he also was highly efficient within his free throw percentage. And then also, Magic Johnson had a higher effective field goal percentage over his career than Bird, with a 533 to 514 in the regular season and a 516 to 485 in the playoffs. When playing each other, Magic Johnson defeated Larry Bird 22 to 15 out of their 37 games played, showcasing him and his dominance over Bird with that significant margin. During that
3, 2, 1.
Okay, and just one thing I kind of pointed out here, guys, is that my opponent says that it's their discrepancies are based largely upon their position, but Bird was largely positionless, and he was, again, like I said, when Magic Johnson came into the league, he was coming in with the reigning MVP. It wasn't like he was expected, again, and this is important too, because it really emphasizes the roles they had to play regardless of their position, what they were expected to do. And again, Magic Johnson was, again, like I said, the third option. Yeah, he was the best facilitator on the team, etc., but he was not the go-to guy, and he was not responsible for the lion's share of the production. And that was guys like Jamal Wilkes, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and later on even guys like Byron Scott and James Worthy, as we saw. And pardon me. That wasn't the case with Larry Bird. Like I said, from the beginning, and whether or not he got help later on, which he absolutely did, Larry Bird was, from the guy, the best player on that team, regardless of expectations, situations, or position. In fact, he was the best all-around player on the team. He was their best passer. He was arguably their best rebounder. He was absolutely their best scorer. He was one of the best defenders. In fact, he does have the 3 all-defensive team selections that Magic has 0 of. They both have 10 all-NBA selections. And just to go into a little bit of how impressive Larry Bird is compared to Matt Johnson, he pioneered the 50-40-90 season. He's the first player to do it, and he did it back-to-back in 87 and 88. He's actually one of only 3 players to record a 50-40-90 postseason. The other 2, he did that in 1986. The other 2 were Kevin Durant, 2017, and Kawhi Leonard in 2019. So when we're talking about this head-to-head, we already covered that Bird clears Magic Johnson in just base stats, beats him in points, rebounds, blocks. He is better from 3-point range. He has a better mid-range. Magic Johnson has a slightly higher field goal percentage because of his shot selection, which is fine. But we know Larry Bird was the better shooter, better individual scorer, better rebounder by far. And he was, obviously the assist numbers aren't as impressive, but he was obviously the best facilitator on his team. And we talk about the impact, right? The Celtics were contenders off the jump. We saw the turnaround there, and both were impressive men. But also, we could argue that Larry Bird had to go through tougher competition, going through Michael Jordan, Dr. J, legendary Sixers teams. He beat Hakeem Olajuwon's Rockets, the same team that beat Magic Johnson in 1986, sent him home. And for my last round there, when it comes out, I will explain kind of in summation how this all points to Larry Bird really being the best player. And especially when we're talking
3,
head-to-head.
2, 1.
All right, so Magic still averaged around 20 points per game for his career. It's not that he wasn't a scorer, it was just his role. And if I'm not mistaken, Bird averaged around 4 or 5 points more, which I don't find to be as drastic as you're describing. Also, with you talking about him being the better rebounder, better blocker, all that sort of stuff, it's 5-on-5 basketball. So when you're judging the one-to-one stats and they're playing different positions, it doesn't equate all the way. I already mentioned that. But the thing that Magic did was make sure that his team was more successful. So when they played each other, and if you even want to go to the stats heads up against each other, he had better game highs against Bird with 39 points to Bird's 35, 21 assists to Bird's 11. And then additionally, for their averages against each other, Magic averaged over twice the amount of assists Bird did with 12.5 to 5.4 when they played each other. This isn't even talking about their championship runs against each other, which again is 5-on-5 basketball. And he was able to impact his team in numerous ways, more versatile throughout his career. And with their runs against each other, Magic and the Lakers won 2-1 the series heads up. And if you talk about each other's teams, both were littered with future Hall of Famers, like I had said. So really, you're just really talking about 2 great teams, but the one that came on top were the Lakers. Magic also in total had 5 NBA titles to Bird's 3. He made 9 finals appearances to Bird's 5. And if you want to talk about the competition, they still had to do it. I think that's a hindsight approach to it. So they still had to go through the Western Conference Finals, just like LeBron had to go through the Eastern Conference, even though people would say it was a weak East. On top of it all, Magic Johnson has the highest winning percentage for a single player of all time. Larry Bird was a fantastic player, but he can't make that claim. On top of it all, Magic played in NBA Finals, and he won the Finals MVP that year. And then also during the 91 season, he ranked second in MVP voting. Bird significantly fell off with his recognition as an MVP caliber talent as his career got to its end. And then I think this describes how Magic Johnson is better than Larry Bird because he had more impact on his team than Bird in respect to those advanced analytics, and then actually winning, was more dominant than Bird against the rest of the league with the statistical titles. He was more dominant against Bird head-to-head with the team winning, and had more team success and championships than them. And then, again, he had the versatility. He may not have been as great of a one-on-one player, but he was still a scorer on the fast break. He was able to get back and transition defense better. And they're both fantastic players.
1.
Well, and yeah, I obviously we have for last one. I can agree with, we both know they're fantastic players, and like this is one of the toughest comparisons ever, just because they played each other. They have similar impacts on their team. and they were the two leading men of an entire decade. But it's kind of, like I said, I want to put a bow on it. Is that when you're talking about just two players heads up, and the team success and impact largely depends on not just you but also your team. And I don't think really there's any disputing that Magic Johnson had a superior team, and especially in most of their finals when Magic Johnson, like I said, was anywhere between the third and fourth option on really until 1986. And because Kareem was still in his heyday, Kareem won Finals MVP in 1985, and he was, Kareem was still their leading rebounder, the leading scorer, the best defensive player on the team. Yes, was Magic Johnson a transcendent passer? Sure. Could he score? Absolutely. But it's nowhere near to the point where, again, you're not expected to be that guy while you have a top 5 player by your side, winning Finals MVP, winning MVP on your watch. During that, Larry Bird didn't have that necessity. He had good players, sure, but in this, he was the best player. He was the best scorer, their best facilitator, their best shooter, their best rebounder. They're arguably one of their best defenders. And without Larry Bird, that team, as we saw what happened, that team would flounder. Again, like I said, I can't emphasize the turnaround enough. No one man has had that significant of a turnaround in history with the 30+ wins increase. And when we're talking about just head to head, again, we saw Larry Bird. They have the same amount of MVPs, the same amount of Finals MVPs. They have, again, but Larry. We know that Larry was the better scorer, the better rebounder, and the better defensive player. And we know that also Larry Bird did it while having to be those things. Magic Johnson did not. I can't emphasize that enough. While Magic was great, again, he had the luxury of not having to be the guy to close out games, not having to be the guy to lead from the front. Again, he did that occasionally, but Larry Bird did it his entire career. As far as him falling off, sure, he had injury problems as well documented, and happened after he had arguably his best season, 1988. He fell off because he had severe injuries. There up in '89, he wasn't the same player, but he had an MVP worthy season in '88, arguably over Michael Jordan, but we'll see about that. But my opinion, again, just to surmise, Larry Bird is a superior player. He beats Magic Johnson statistically. He beats him in just overall resume as far as just team impact goes. And Larry Bird was a more complete player all around the Magic Johnson. I don't think that's up for debate either.
3, 2, 1.
Alrighty. Yeah, so I thought that was a great debate. If you're watching this back, I'm going to put up a poll for you to decide on who you thought won. I thought that I made some fantastic points. I think it'll put me over the edge. T Perfect, what do you have to say?
I think both of us made great points. It's just, I think that I like my argument that, like I said, Larry Bird had to be the best player on that team from the jump. And to me, that can't go. I can't be overstated enough. It's like you have to be the best. When you have to be the man in every facility, in every aspect, then it's tough to say that another guy's better than you. That's kind of like the LeBron James argument too. But
yeah, I mean, I get that aspect of it. I think that it really doesn't matter at the end of the day, though. I think it's more so about results. And I have a fundamental disagreement with you about he was a better rebounder, he was a better scorer. I think that probably one-on-one that Larry Bird would probably beat Magic Johnson. However, Magic Johnson's role was wildly different. He played in generally a different area of the basketball court than what Larry Bird did on offense and defense. So his rebounds weren't going to be as great. And then additionally, he had the steals titles. He had 2 of them. He was quick on his feet, like I described. And then both of them were quick with their hands. And Magic Johnson was so quick that he led the league in steals for 2 years. Now, I just don't think it was a wild difference of how much of a better defender Bird was or even is possibly. I don't know if he's a better defender. He got the all defensive teams. I'm just not sure if that's – I'm not sure if that significantly makes him a better defender, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say that there's there's absolutely no argument to make that there's like a night and day difference between these guys really on anything, just because they're very similar as far as like their drive, their team impact. I mean, regardless of what you want to say. The thing with Bird, though, like I said, it's like when you're coming in, I like Magic Johnson was in this, especially in his college days. It doesn't matter, like he was point guard, he was their best scorer for sure. He was basically their best rebounder, best passer, everything. Now, regardless of like what position you play, when you're coming into the league as the best player, you're generally expected to be the best scorer. And really, that's been the case across time. Like there really hasn't been. I can't think of another example of where the guy came in and said, "Okay, well, I'm going to be the best passer on the offense," and was considered the best player if he wasn't the best scorer. I can't think of another example of that. And especially if he wasn't their best anything else other than that, which Magic Johnson wasn't for at least the first 5 years of his career, because he was playing alongside Kareem. And is that Magic's fault? No. And like they had great success together. But Larry Bird didn't have any of the. It doesn't matter like what he came in or what his position was. He was expected to be the best in every aspect that he was. Maybe the only player ever to actually accomplish that, as far as all major statistics and leading from the front in every regard and checking every box. I mean, you could argue maybe it was LeBron. I mean, Mike for a little bit, but yeah, Larry Bird was, really stands alone when it comes to, I think that, which is why I think that he was the better player.
That's fair. Woodage says it's tough. Bird had no offensive weaknesses and made the all-defensive team 3 times, I believe. Magic, though, was just a triple-double threat and hard to stop at 6'9" at the point guard position. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And that's, even with the stats, I didn't mention the triple-doubles. It's just something that I think is fantastic, triple-doubles. I just don't think I don't know. I just didn't mention them. I think he's got 3 times the amount of triple doubles that Bird does, with 150 something. I'd have to look at it again. I think Bird might have 40, if that. But Magic Johnson has a plethora of triple doubles, and that showcases his capability to hit the stats at all levels. So I mean, I guess that's a counter argument. I didn't make it, but I don't really. It's just something I don't value as much.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a great argument. Maybe the toughest head-to-head comparison ever, just because of, they played and like they were mirror opposites. But yeah, it's tough to say because they both bring a lot to the team, each team, and it's like these are the best debates because no one can definitively say, hey, this guy's way better or something, because the resumes are very similar, almost identical in a lot of ways. And, they both ran the 80s basically. And, it's tough. And yeah, to a degree, their stats look like you would expect, kind of, like the way it has looked with a few exceptions throughout history, right? Like you wouldn't expect Shaq to have like 14 assists and, 18, like 3 or 4 steals a game. Like his stats look how they look. Same thing with guys like Tim Duncan and, John Stockton, things like that. So it's tough. I just think, yeah, like when you're talking about all-around players, the best all-around players in history, like who are they? It's guys who can do everything. It's kind of rare.
Yeah. And one thing that, like the one thing that really does kind of grind my gears, and it's not you specifically, but the argument of like the star power on a team that just makes the team better. I've never been a fan of that. I'm not saying Kareem isn't an all-time great. Obviously he's one of the greatest ever, but that Boston Celtics team, what they have the 67 win team in 1986, and they still had, even with star power, they had Dennis Johnson, who was a finals MVP, let alone all the guys that came up with that. And then you had Bill Walton, a former MVP too. And he was 6 man. He was past his prime per se with all those injuries. I just think that, and again, this isn't pointing the finger at you because I hear a lot of people say this. They say, well, they were together, so that just naturally means that their team was great. But it often, even with recent history, that doesn't prove to be true with all these super teams, like per se with Kevin Durant and jumping with James Harden and Kyrie Irving on the Nets or other teams like that. That's just one example. I just think that star power doesn't always mean that you're a great team. It helps, don't get me wrong, if it's done right. But I just wanted to say, I think that Boston Celtics team was an absolutely phenomenal team as well. And I think that in respect to the comparison, I think they widely, generally speaking, will get pushed aside to say that they weren't as good of a team. I think the results say that, but I think that in the moment and the regular season record, all of that, I think it proves to show that team was a fantastic team as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, no one's ever going to say that they're not. Like the 86 Celtics, maybe a top 5 team of all time, they all had great teams. And yeah, 87 Lakers. I mean, all of them had like the best teams ever. Like it just because of not only the names, like you're right, but how they finished, like they did what they were expected to do. And yeah, I think they all peaked. And I mean, no one's ever going to say that they didn't, the Celtics were overrated or didn't have any help. There was, I think that these were two, especially dynasties, like top 5 teams for decade teams. Like when we're talking about that, like it's kind of rarefied air too. Like you have Celtics, Bulls, all these teams that had sustained greatness is the hardest thing to do. And, it's rare that we see that. Like we kind of saw the Spurs do it. But yeah, it's just a rare moment in time where you have a coalition of guys who dominate. And I don't know if we'll ever see that again as far as teams winning multiple championships with similar, rosters in a decade span, just because of how much player movement there is now. And, I want to say parity, but it kind of has to do with that. But it's tough. Like, you're going to see like some more dominant teams. We'll see how tomorrow shakes out in Game 7. But
so that's something too. I haven't been watching it, but as being somebody in Hawaii, that it's hard to watch these games. Especially when you're working, because they start when you're working for outside of the weekend. And for me, I usually work 12-hour days at least. So for me, it's hard to catch them. But I haven't watched this series, which kind of sucks because it seems like it's panned out pretty good. I'm going to try to watch this next game. I don't know how I'm going to watch it because I don't have any of the things to watch it with. But
let's go to B-Dubs, man. We'll all be there.
You're going to go to B-Dubs tomorrow?
I have been, yeah. I think it starts at the same time at 2:30, if I'm mistaken. But I've made a couple of the weekend ones. Obviously, you're right. Like I can't, I'm working during the week, so I can't just. And it's on at like 2:30, so that's middle of my work day. But yeah, tomorrow after everything, I'll probably head down there and watch it. It's a pretty good place to watch it.
Is it at Ala Moana or?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll get with you. Yeah, I usually don't. I'm usually a homebody, so I think I can get away with it.
Fair enough.
But just initially looking at it, I think that if the Pacers win, I'm not sure how long they stay on top, but I think in that same conversation, if the Thunder lose, I don't know if they're coming back if they lose. If they win, I think they've got a better chance of making another deep run. I don't know how it's going to affect their psyche if the Pacers win, though. Just making it to the finals and choking it up.
You're right.
Can they recover?
You're right. And like Scap has been saying for like the last week and a half, if they lose, it would be arguably one of the biggest upsets in NBA history just because of what they did during the regular season. Their place in history, statistically. And yeah, nobody saw the Pacers coming out. I mean, I said at the beginning of the season they're my favorite team. I didn't expect them to win, but I like the Pacers a lot. But this would be a huge upset. And yeah, I think some of the free agents that they're going to have would probably want to bail. just because they made their money, they've been there. But I think they'll still be a good team because they're young. They can keep their core maybe, but this, to make no doubt, this would be one of the bigger upsets we've ever seen in NBA history.
Yeah, what they get 69 wins or something this year?
Yeah, 68 wins, and they were like number one in like in SRS or whatever. They beat like the 72 Bucks. It was crazy.
Only one 68 win team won a title, Sixers in 67. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of sixes there. And then there's but Woodage, since you're here, and I think you watched the majority of this debate, if not all of it, who do you think won? Do you think it was me with Magic Johnson or Travis with Larry Bird? And you can say Travis. That's okay if you think he won. I'm not going to be upset.
Who is Woodage?
A longtime subscriber from the channel that I hopefully get back soon.
Nice. That'd be good.
I hope I get it back. I mean,
is there a possibility of that?
I've put faith that it's a possibility, and have done things to try and have it happen. So I don't know. I hope so.
It'd be awesome.
Yeah. If it doesn't, then it definitely sucks.
Yeah, we should have more close debates like this, or like debates which are like really not one-sided, like hard debates.
Yeah.
Which is like this is obviously one of the best ones. So you obviously have the GOAT debate, but there's so many.
I think this is one of the tougher ones. I think that like anyone can make an argument for anything. Oh no. T Perfect got the win from Woodage.
Oh, Woodage, I'm a fan of you already.
He's also Woodage also is clearly a Larry Bird fan. So
yeah.
But yeah, I think that I like these closer debates, and it's how you approach them too, and it's how the voters, especially if they're close like this, it's really what kind of angle do the voters appreciate more. Mm-hmm. I mean, I do think Magic is better, but if you're talking as a one-on-one player, I would say that Larry Bird will probably beat Magic Johnson. I just think Magic Johnson did more in total. It's definitely great to shine the flashlight on both of them, and you look at the one-on-one skills.
I'm taking Larry Bird over Magic in an all-time draft just because in hindsight, right? If you have hindsight, mm-hmm. like I want, he can be my best scorer. He can be my best defender. He can be my best rebounder. Like he can be my best passer. He can be everything. Like he's like the perfect guy to build around, right? Magic Johnson, could be those things, but he was the only thing he was consistently their best at was passing, which is great. But like I want a guy who's proven to be the all-around best player in the league every single year. But there's no wrong answer. But that's if I'm building a team from scratch, I'm taking as many of those guys as I can get. Like taking him. I'm taking obviously Hakeem, LeBron. I'm taking all these guys who can check every box because, not because of their position, but because of how great they are as players. Pippen. Bird is the first consistency. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, off the top of my head, yeah, I think that might be right. Yeah. Yeah, you could argue somebody like Pete Maravich that had that, but it was he only shot up a couple, and then
Pete Maravich was on that team.
Yeah, he was.
That was weird.
Tiny Archibald and Dave Cowens.
Yeah, that was crazy. Like you look at the '79 Celtics, they had all those names and they sucked. because those guys were kind of like out of their primes, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, Magic.
I mean, they'd only won a title 3 years before that, so it's not like it was that far removed.
Yeah, they weren't. They were just it was rebuild time. So Magic from '90 was super. Yeah, no, Magic was an efficient guy. Like he was great at shot selection. He never jacked up shots out of rhythm or out of the offensive scheme. He was great. He could post up. He was 6'9". Like, so he had an advantage most nights over guys who were going to guard him because, whatever. But Magic was, and when he had to, like Pat Riley was like, "Hey man, I need you to score more," like in '87 when he won MVP, right? So that's probably that's definitely his best year.
Yeah, and that's why I think he just did more in total. And you had said that Bird was the best defensive player. I don't know
Top
about
five.
that. Well, on his team, yeah.
On his team, no. I mean, it was definitely
team,
McHale, but I think that he was a good defender. I think he's underrated defensively. But yeah,
the
best
defender
was definitely
defender. Yeah. No, I was just saying when you said for the draft of him being the best defender.
Yeah. I mean, even if he's not, I wouldn't care just because he's like the best guy at everything else on my team for sure. And I know he's not going to be a liability defensively for me. And so I'm just like, okay. But he's not who I draft first in a draft. I mean, overall, I'm taking 70s Kareem, but
Bird was great at playing the passing lanes.
Both of them were.
Yeah, Magic Johnson was great of pickpocketing too.
I think steals are underrated, honestly. Like, people tend to dismiss them because, they're like, oh, that's just, you gambling. No, it's like you having good hands, good instinct, good positioning. And that's part of defense. That's directly a turnover. Yeah. So I think you can't dismiss them. If somebody's consistently good at that, they may not be like locked down but I mean, that's a great aspect of defense. So Magic was good.
All of the 5 major stat categories describe a change of possession in one way or another. And generally possessions win games if you have more possessions. It doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah.
But most of the time, if you have more possessions, you're going to win the game, especially with a 24-second shot clock where you can't just sit on it. So, yeah, I agree. I think that when people argue, oh, well, steals, blocks are overrated, it's describing a change of possession. And that's what it's all about, is having the capability to score. And if you don't have the ball, you can't score. So.
No, exactly. And I mean, they're not underrated because especially if it's all about if you do it consistently. Like, we know that Bill Russell and Will would have had probably 8 to 9 blocks a game at least, right? If that was tracked.
That would have a lot, yeah. Definitely.
Crazy stuff like that.
Yeah.
They would be the goats.
Yeah, and it's hard because I made a new list I was talking to you about for my tangible goat debate. But the hard thing is that it sucks because you can't directly compare somebody like Wilt to, let's say, Shaq, like we discussed, because not everything was accounted for the same. So if you were to take all the All-NBA teams that he would have won, even though he was still winning first-team All-NBAs at the end of his career, if they were Defensive Player of the Years, if there was all of these other things that didn't exist then, I think when you do all time, you just have to take into account that it's not a direct player comparison. So I think there's a difference between comparing guys like Wilt and Shaq versus having an all-time list. I think that sometimes these outliers, especially with intangibles, and to include just the lack of, if you want to call it concrete evidence, people will even like to fine tooth statistics, lately about if they're true or not. But the point of it is that there were no just general statistics to take account for the blocks. So to me, you have to level the playing field when you're comparing guys from different eras, or at the very least, awards that were not accounted for. So you have to level the playing field at the lowest common denominator. And then, but I think for the all-time GOAT list, just because you can go and these things do mean things, you can't take away that they mean things, but it doesn't mean they're necessarily greater individually or better individually versus guys that you can't account for that stuff. So I still think that if you want to argue, I still don't think it's true, but if you want to argue guys like Wilt and Russell to be the GOATs, I still think they have a fair play at it, even if, let alone just across all time, even that standard where you're not accounting for everything because you can't. But even when you start directly comparing them to other players, I still think they have weight in that realm.
No, you're right. And you can just do it straight up where it's just like, it depends on your criteria, right? Like if you're just saying like Wilt, like even without things like blocks and all defensive teams, DPOY, things like that, he was a monster, and we know it, right? Like he had all these records will probably never fall. And then same thing for Bill Russell. He, arguably the best defender of all time. And yeah, those are things we can quantify. The only reason I don't rank them personally is because I use a lot of what is available now, and I don't think it's fair to them. I like you said with me, I always say if all these things were available, we wouldn't even be talking about it. They would have the market cornered on everything. DPOYs, all defensive teams, blocks. They would have, it would just be insane. And then we'd talk about everyone else. I just don't rank them because I just think we're playing the what if game with them. But yeah, you can, they definitely check a lot of boxes. They each have MVPs, right? Like a lot of MVPs. They have Wilt has the scoring records and reboundings and all these things he did. And obviously, Bill Russell with the 11, or with the team accomplishments. And then he has, he was arguably the best inventor. Like we have these things we can look at with them and make a GOAT case for each of them. And yeah, it's fair. Anyone who says that they're the GOATs, I don't really take issue with it all, and I don't really argue them down because they have great cases regardless. It just, for me personally, it's just like I put them to the side and say they're the asterisk GOATs. Just personally.
Yeah. No, I got you. But for our next debate, you still want to do Kobe versus Duncan? Who's greater? Where
Kobe Duncan? Yeah, I am totally down for that. Who are you taking?
Kobe. You said you wanted Duncan.
Duncan, yeah, sure. I'll take Duncan for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. If you're watching this back, it should be maybe next Saturday. We'll get back to you. But please vote on who you thought won. I'll put a link on the website for you to check that out. And please check us out next time if you like the debate and the discussion. If you're watching this in the future, we'll have more of these. You have any last words for the people?
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in, and yeah, hope you catch the next show, and be sure and vote one, and hopefully we'll have a lot more of these, and we'll get some more great debates out for you.
Absolutely. And Michael Jordan fans are the best.